This is Tony Chimmel, and I'd like to introduce the hosts of the Game Marks podcast, George Feis and Johnny Clash.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast, where each and every week we take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the awesome of wrestling video games. I'm the man they call Johnny Clash.
And I am George Feis, and today we are playing TNA Impact Cross the Line for the Nintendo DS and the PSP. How will this game hold up? Will it get a play it forever or a future endeavor? We also discuss AEW Fight Forever Hookhausen and a whole lot more.
And please subscribe and leave a 5-star review for this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And don't forget, you can get this episode early and ad-free, along with Discord access. Yeah, along with the show notes. Yeah. And along with, George?
Live recordings, which is happening right now.
That's right. We got some people in the chat here. I feel like this is like a cool little thing that we never really did, but it's so easy to do, and I want to do more of.
So I'm always a big fan of doing the live Twitch recordings because those are chaotic and fun, and the word silly comes to mind. But it's a good time. But this is more exclusive. You're part of the episode, as it's recording, and you're in the nitty gritty. You get to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff that maybe you would
to see our pee-pee breaks.
When you otherwise wouldn't. If you want to see John sip a Powerade or wherever he just took a sip of, you could see that.
Powerade Zero, new obsession. It's so good.
And fruit punch flavor. It's so crazy.
Yeah, go blue and red,
I was saying.
America.
Does Powerade have any other flavors? Do they have like a lemon lime? Or am I making that up?
Probably, but I don't know. No one needs that. No one needs lemon lime.
I feel like I always see blue and red.
Anyway, we originally said last week, and like we've been saying somewhat a lot lately, cards subject to change. We were supposed to hang out with the Meat Pop Express podcast, and some stuff came up. Whatever. We are going to reschedule for a later time, so it's all good. We're going to do that another time. We decided we would throw it once again in our Discord for the Patreon members to pick a game this week. I gave them a list, kind of like we used to do, a little old school. And this is what we came up with: TNA Impact on the DS and the PSP. They are two very, very different games, other than the name, and we're going to dive into them. But George, last week we played WWE Legends of WrestleMania. Quite the reception. A lot of people hold nostalgia for this game, either good or bad. I saw some people say they like playing it around WrestleMania season, or even like the day of WrestleMania. They'll pop it in and kind of get themselves in the mood. I don't know. Do they play on the Saturday or do they play on the Sunday? It's kind of all, I don't know.
I guess that's the thing you have to consider now. Do you play one WrestleMania game? Do you play like WrestleMania the arcade game?
Yeah, luckily there's many. So you could pick one.
Yeah, there was like a early rule that we tried to go by where we're just we're only going to play the WrestleMania games and during Mania season, and then it just...
Then it was 6 Fire Pros in a row. And
had to play. And then somewhere along the way, we're just we kind of got to start peppering in these WWE games. There's not as many as you think.
Yeah, but hey, good response overall. Some do hold that game kind of fondly, but I saw people ask if it was real or a mod. I'm like, no, this is definitely real. This is a real game.
Well, because it looks, if you're not aware that this is a game, and maybe your only knowledge of the Rushmore style games is Legends of Wrestling and Showdown, and this looks a lot better than those games. So to have
way better.
So to have that kind of just sneak up out of nowhere, whether it's someone who, we talked about how this game kind of slipped under the radar at the time for both of us because it was either this or the yearly release from the regular WWE line. This is one of those games that I said for years that I was like, oh, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to play it. I never did.
No, But
So
that's why this show exists.
yeah, so encouraging everyone going back and playing those games too.
Speaking of going back and playing games, earlier in the week, I sent you a Star Wars pinball arcade 1-up, which I feel like coincides with everything we've been talking about lately.
I want it.
Okay, here's the thing. I saw it in person today at Costco.
Okay.
Does not look that great.
No? Is it because it's digital? That was the one thing that threw me off. It's like, it's digital. I kind of would want a pinball machine to be like a real authentic pinball machine.
I think it's along the same lines, but I think the same thing goes with all of the arcade 1-ups. It's too small. Where from a distance, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like there was a display, the boxes and everything. I was like, this is cool. Let's go check it out. And then someone walked over, like a regular sized man walked over and started playing it. I'm like, he looks very large. And as I got closer, I'm like, oh, this thing's whack. It's, yeah, it's very, very tiny. The screen is very small. It's like if I took my monitor and just flipped it sideways, not ideal. I guess for kids it would be great, but for the, what was it, like $6.99? For that price tag, no thanks.
Well,
you can play space pinball, whatever came with Windows XP.
You're saving me a little bit of money here, so.
No, super cool though. But I don't know. One of those things they just gotta make a little better and cheaper.
So I have a friend who went and bought. I mean, he's been saving and working with the company for years. But he finally bought a full-size 4-person arcade cabinet loaded with a Raspberry Pi and I think it's like a 27 or 30-inch monitor in a full arcade cabinet, and you can play anything. Like anything from the Commodore 64 to the PlayStation 2 on this arcade cabinet.
That's gotta be big for 4 people, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's a full-size like TMNT style arcade cabinet. I think he got it done up I've only seen pictures of it. He got it done up in the style of Tron.
That's got to be cool, like the lights and stuff.
So the cabinet like graphics like for the marquee and the side graphics in the front plate are all Tron, but he was sending me pictures. Got 4 USB ports for USB controllers, full controller support, whether you plug in a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller, it works.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I would have like a full McDonald's setup where it's just 4 N64 controllers plugged in.
I was afraid to ask how much he spent on it.
Don't. It'll ruin all of your dreams.
Oh, my God. It had to be multiple thousands of dollars, but it looks awesome.
Yeah. Damn. Remember, I went through that phase of
the dreams,
wanting an arcade 1-up. I was going to put it right here, and my wife talked me out of it.
One, because it'll be in front of a window, and 2,
no one needs a window.
Well, if they come up with a Sting arcade 1-up for some reason, you got to get it.
All right. Also on the docket here, Hookhausen has been released and cursed in AEW Fight Forever, bringing some life back into the game, I guess. Now, this is the cool part. One of our Discord members said that they were playing as Hook, not Danhausen, Hook. He went under the ring for a weapon in a lights out match, and Danhausen comes out from under the ring and curses you. So that's cool. Sure it's just
that's pretty sick.
A little quick time event or something that you can't really control. It's still cool to see in there.
Fun little Easter egg.
And we're gonna get more into this game when we get to the soft lock question later. But Hookhausen has arrived. They need to continue with these releases and keep this game afloat because, boy, is it on its last swimmy here.
It's not that it's not that the game is bad. It's that it suffer from there's not a ton to do outside of just doing Stadium Stampede or Road to the Elite.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get all into it later in the soft lock. But what you been playing? You get on that Counter-Strike 2 and all that?
No, that's all I've been doing.
That's all you've been doing?
As of recording, it released yesterday. Officially, I tried my hardest to get into the beta prior, but it is officially here, Counter-Strike 2, and yeah, very much back into it. It looks great. The new effects for both all the tactical grenades and the lighting effects and how they've kind of just I don't know. They took a game that was already really, really good and just made it prettier, which for me, cool. Feels like a fresh coat of paint. Feels like a brand new game. And it is, for all intents and purposes, a brand new game. I'm all for it.
Now, this is Counter-Strike 2?
Yeah, so...
Didn't Counter-Strike 2 come out like years ago?
No, so they're doing the Spider-Man thing, or they did the Spider-Man thing, or Spider-Man's following suit with them. So they released Counter-Strike, and Counter-Strike used to be a mod for Half-Life 1. Then it became official release. Then they did like Condition Zero, which is an expansion. They had 1.6 and Source, which was the same exact game, just ported from the original Half-Life engine to the Half-Life 2 engine. Then
this game always confused the shit out of me, but I played the first one.
Then they did Counter-Strike Then they did Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which is CS:GO, which is the one that's been out for a really long time.
I always thought that was a mobile game because it was called Go.
Yep.
Then it clicked.
And now they have officially released Counter-Strike 2, which Global Offensive is no more. Like it has been fully replaced. They Overwatched it. So Overwatch 1 doesn't exist anymore. It's just Overwatch 2. Counter-Strike Global Offensive does not exist anymore. It's just CS2.
What a model. What a business model.
Well, because the reason that they did it that way is because all of your skins and character models that you had gotten over the course of the last years of playing Counter-Strike, all that transferred over into CS2.
All right. That's fair.
So you don't lose the money, especially because there are some knives and stuff and skins that are in Counter-Strike that are worth like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Crazy as that
Tim
sounds.
the Tatman would have wasted the $10,000 on nothing.
Exactly.
I downloaded Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and I'll tell you this. I have no idea how to play. I used to know how to play. The names of like the cards.
Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Blue Eyes White Dragon, like all
Dark
that
Magician.
clicks with me. Like I know it. I've been watching the show.
What was the Exodia? Was that the one that you had to get the pieces from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't remember what I'm doing, and there's just a lot to it. So hopefully I could play a few, get back in the swing of it. We'll see. I don't know.
That's a series that I have not thought about in a long time.
Oh, I've been watching the show. I'm almost done with season 1, which is 45 episodes, and I still remember majority of what happened from when it was in real time.
All right.
Anyway.
Well,
you hear that music? Dan. Are you ready to cross the line?
TNA Impact Cross the Line. Released on the PSP and the Nintendo DS, June 29th, 2010. Published by South Peak Games. Developed by Midway Studios Los Angeles. Point of View Incorporated and Double Tap Games. And a long list of competition here in 2010. You've got WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2011 and Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide, and that's it. That's the whole list. 2 other games in the wrestling world came out.
So that Lucha Libre AAA is the one we thought was on the Impact engine, though it is not.
It's not.
It's not. I think a lot of people think that, but it is not on the same engine. I think that's on Unreal.
I wanted to like that game.
Yeah. I wanted to like it going in knowing it was on the engine that it's not on. So once we played it, we're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah. I just, something different. Not your usual run-of-the-mill WWE or one of the 3 dozen Fire Pro games. So I was excited for it. But this also was in a category all its own because we're going to talk about in a little bit. There are 2 versions of this game that are very different from each other. And let's break them down.
Let's start with the PSP version because it's pretty much an identical port from the console release like most PSP games.
Which is not surprising. It's the path of least resistance in terms of developing.
No, and when you look at it, it looks pretty much the same. There's not much off. There is a video on YouTube that I was watching earlier today that has the same exact cutscene playing from the story mode, but it shows PS2, Xbox 360, and then it shows the PSP version on the right. So it's all 3 at the same time. Honestly, really, really close. The Xbox obviously looked better. The PlayStation 2, I think, looked worse than the PSP.
PlayStation 2 worse than the PSP.
I don't know if that's possible, but if you think of the PSP screen scaled down, it's honestly
That's true. In context of the screen size that you're getting, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing about emulating the game sometimes is that, my setup for all of our emulators is to not do any of the upscaling that they always have, is where they try to like give you all the smoothing and the texture upgrades and try to fix everything. And I'm like, no. I just want to be able to play the games that I otherwise can't play anymore, but I want to try to play them and make sure that the footage that we record for the podcast and how we experience them, it's how it was available at the time of release. Like, yeah, all those upscaling things are super cool, like outside of when you're trying to get like an authentic feel. Like, yeah, give me all crazy texture smoothing and model smoothing like that. Make the game look as pretty as possible. But in the context of doing the podcast, the way that it was is how we should experience it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know when I'm like itchy to play this game, I have no problem popping on the PSP version because it's quicker and more accessible to play. And that, I think, is largely why the PSP was so successful. It gave you the games you like, the Grand Theft Autos and everything, and right in your hand with an internet browser in 2006, 7, when you didn't have that really anywhere other than, once again, we're mentioning it, the T-Mobile Sidekick. But now in November of 2009, South Peak Games acquired Midway Games, and obviously the TNA license came with it. This game was ported by Double Tap Games onto the PSP. Pretty much the same as far as wrestlers and match types. There's a few additions here and there we're going to mention a little later. And then removed was actually Christian Cage, Senshi, who is Low-Key, and Christopher Daniels, who departed the company, which means someone else took his spot on the roster we're going to mention in a little bit. Now, the difference here, we're going to really break them down, but Hulk Hogan made his TNA video game debut on the Nintendo DS version. He is not in the PSP version, I'm going to say, because that is a direct port of the console game. So to make Hulk Hogan, it's going to be a new moveset. It's going to be everything where you can't just copy and paste. The DS version is kind of built from the ground up, and it's strangely comparable to an older game that we have played many times before.
We'll say this just to kind of tee it up. It's not a very expansive moveset, and a lot of everyone kind of looks like a bendy a little bit.
Everyone looks like a bendy, yeah. Now, the game modes for the exhibitions, you still have your standard, your tag, your Ultimate X free-for-all, which is a 4-way. Submission, false count anywhere tag, handicap match. Now added is Full Metal Mayhem, which is kind of just a weapons match, a gauntlet, and the Super X Cup, which is for the X Division title.
All right.
Are you ready for this roster here?
I am willing to do both rosters.
You've been doing the rosters. I'm taking the TNA roster.
Right.
These are my guys here.
Hey,
okay?
I'm offering to do my part.
All right. Your PSP roster is Abyss, AJ Styles, Alex Shelley, Booker T, Brother Devon, Brother Ray, Chris Sabin, Consequences Creed, what did he ever do? Don West, Eric Young, Hernandez, Homicide, Hulk Hogan, James Storm, Jay Lethal, Jeff Jarrett, Kevin Nash, Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, Mike Tenay, Mike Tenay, yes, is in this game. Petey Williams, Rhino, Robert Roode, Samoa Joe, Scott Steiner, Shark Boy, Sanjay Dutt, Sting, Suicide, and Tomko. Now, the arenas in here, you are getting, of course, Orlando, the Armory, Freedom Center, Japan, Mexico, England, and Las Vegas, Nevada, which are from the console port of this game. But the new arenas, you get Canada, San Diego, a factory, and
what does that
Houston.
mean, John?
I'm not going to say. And Houston.
Damn. All right. Well, let's jump into the DS version. This is where we chose to do our video playthrough on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameMarksPod. And like John mentioned, this is built from the ground up. and features, unfortunately, a much smaller roster. Now, this also has a new sort of career mode, which includes Bound for Glory and Victory Road as you move through your journey of TNA. And in Bound for Glory, you run a gauntlet of opponents as your favorite superstar, which is it? Okay, this is maybe a me thing, not knowing much about TNA. For me, I always think that Superstars is a WWE thing.
Yeah.
Everywhere else just call, but I feel like in other context, a lot of promotions like at the time were calling their wrestlers superstars.
Yeah, but TNA, I don't think they really called them superstars. I mean, they developed knockouts for the women's division. They still use that, which is kind of weird because like Divas division is gone and all that. It's just a women's division.
Yeah.
Honestly, they probably have the best women's division in all of wrestling. I mean, give or take, but yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, so you run a gauntlet through as your favorite wrestler, and in Victory Road, you climb to the top of the heavyweight division and create the Ultimate Tag Team, or you could dominate Ultimate X. And now the DS version game features new match types such as the 6 sides of steel cage, which good luck climbing out of the cage.
Yeah. Check out that
the actual cage match, and a 4 corners match. Now, I will say this. There are some, I don't know if I would call them glitches necessarily. It's almost like at certain points the camera kind of forgets where it is in the match, and you could not be facing the correct side of the cage and still go to climb the cage. Like you could be up against the lower, like right hand side of the cage and then turn to the top left and start climbing.
Yeah, it's a little delayed. And also the 6 sides also screws with that, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it was a weird like visual bug glitch that was the only one that I noticed throughout my whole gameplay. So
I just noticed the collision was very off on the DS version.
Should we address what the similarity is now?
It is spot on pretty much from like Warzone and Attitude.
It's Warzone DS with the TNA roster.
It's like pretty crazy. Like you mentioned it, but then I was noticing some like animations were the same. But then we're going to get to it in the Did You Know that there is a similar developer to WrestleMania, the arcade game, which is also an Acclaim game like Warzone and Attitude. So maybe there's some parts taken here and there, but even the crowd noises, the same like cheers and boos are almost identical to Attitude. It's crazy. I noticed when you gave a 1-arm snapmare in your match, I was like, oh,
there are some
Warzone.
There are some moves that it looks like they took the base movement and then kind of added or combined it with something else to make like a new move. Like there's like Sting does like a gorilla press slam, but it's like when he drops, it's almost like he kind of like does a body slam, but you land on your face. It was a weird combination of animations to make a new move, which just, I don't know, at parts felt a little fake. But let's break down this roster here for the DS version. You've got Abyss, AJ Styles, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Consequences Creed, Curryman, Hernandez, Homicide, Hulk Hogan, James Storm, Jay Lethal, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, Rhino, Robert Roode, Samoa Joe, and Sting. So Curryman, eh?
Curryman is the secret man. So you take out Christopher Daniels here, but you could keep his moveset and just put his alter ego Curryman. You don't have to use his likeness. Pretty crazy. Hulk Hogan, this is his video game debut for TNA, as we said. He's also in the other mobile games, TNA Impact, and I think the other one might be called TNA. I don't remember the other one. TNA mobile game. Is it also Cross the Line?
It's either Crossline or it's just TNA.
Oh, it's just TNA Wrestling.
Yeah, I feel like there was one that was just TNA.
Now, the weirdest part here, I think, is that little touch screen on the bottom, because there are little events that come up when you do submissions and
submissions. Yeah, I thought there was going to be one for pinning,
but were you ever pinned?
No, but I thought
so. That's the thing.
For me to pin, I thought was going to be like you have to do. I thought it would be essentially be a mini game on both ends, because it's not like you could do local 2-player on a DS. So I thought, okay, you're pinning mini game, you get pinned, different mini game, and then they kind of go from there. But that was not the case.
No, and that kind of attests to the game being very easy. Like you were punching and kicking, and your health bar or whatever, your finisher meter was going way up quick. Theirs goes down way quick. Their body was in red like immediately. So yeah, you weren't pinned almost at all. The closest you got to losing was Mick Foley standing halfway up a cage and not proceeding up the rest.
It's wild how some of these models look too. You mentioned Mick Foley. It like the textures are there, but yeah, like model wise, we'll get into it a little bit. For your arenas for the DS version, you've got Orlando, Florida, Mexico, the Armory, Tokyo, Japan, London, England, the Freedom Center, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Jumping over to this cover art, let's talk about the two different styles here on the PSP. It is the regular PlayStation release of Cross the Line. It's the same exact cover. There's no difference. It's the blue background with Kurt Angle, Sting, and AJ Styles with the wonderful TNA Wrestling Impact logo. And then on the DS, though, we're getting a new TNA logo here. Different TNA logo, not as grunge, I want to say. Maybe not as distressed.
I like this TNA logo a lot better than the older one. One.
Is it just everything is like they just kind of got rid of the nonsense in the back and kind of
they got rid of the Vin Diesel XXX logo in the background.
Yeah. They DWCW'd it.
Yeah, pretty much. When in reality, they really more WCW'd it.
Yeah. And on the DS cover, you've got a red background now with Hulk Hogan front and center. Who could have saw that coming? AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. And
we always say it. That's how you sell a video game.
Everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is. Yeah. Everyone knows. The people outside of wrestling who've never watched wrestling a day in their life know who Hulk Hogan is.
That's right.
And on the back cover, you've got Wrestling So Real You Feel Pain. The biggest name in professional wrestling is back. Hulk Hogan. But that's not all. Play as one of 18 TNA superstars, including AJ Styles, Sting, Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, and more. This is total nonstop action. This is wrestling. This is TNA.
A little redundant.
Yeah. And you got some in-game screenshots here, which, while square, have a nice little grunge distressed frame around them, which I think is kind of cool. Big picture of Sting front and center with his bat. And fight your way through the top of the world's premier wrestling organization. Win through pinfall, submission, or falls count anywhere. And make friends and enemies in a story unique to each wrestler.
That's pretty cool. So you're not getting that suicide storyline like in the other TNA game, which is also in the PSP version. You're getting new Bound for Glory. It's called Bound for Glory mode. That's for each wrestler.
Yeah, which I think I touched on earlier. Yep. That is a cool little feature that I'm trying to think of. Like you see that a lot in fighting games. Like Tekken has unique story to each character, and Mortal Kombat has that, and Street Fighter has that. You don't really see that a lot in wrestling games, which is kind of cool. I mean, there are some titles out there that have it, but it's cool to see it in like, you know, a handheld TNA game.
Yeah, it's also just they're not long at all.
Yeah, that's the other. You could buzz through all of them in no time, but it's cool that they're there. It's unique. It's there.
I want to point out it says 18 TNA superstars, like you were talking about earlier. Superstars isn't capital, so it's just saying they're superstars.
It's just like, superstars,
like your superstar Tom Brady, your superstar. You know, like
I think
you're
that's
a superstar. You're not a
WWE
superstar.
drilling that into your
what
head
they
for
do.
so many years. You're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a WWE term.
That's what they do. But let's talk about the arts and the graphics here. Oh, the PSP version is pretty much spot on from the regular release. You get the crowd has the same spotlight effects that you get in the console version, which I always thought was very cool. TNA was very unique, like lighting and visuals around this time. It was a little much at times, and then eventually later on they just made like a mini Raw set that was just like, all right, not as unique. But I think the PSP version, it's pretty much perfect. The HUD's a little big on it for the small screen.
That's what I was going to say, is that when you have just a one-on-one, it's fine. But when there's 4 people in there, you're losing a good portion of the screen to the nameplates.
Yeah, that's the bad part about this being on such a small screen. But
I get it. It's on a small screen. You want to be able to, 1, read the text of who you're playing as, and then 2, also be able to see, I can't imagine that your icon that shows the damage to your body, that could have gotten much smaller because parts of it are super thin. Like you would lose the head damage, you would lose the lower part of the leg.
My body ain't super thin. Yeah, I agree. And you get that same meter in the DS version, but on the touchscreen. So you get 2,
which is nicer because you have 2 screens to play with.
Yeah, and you get 2 images of of you and your opponent. And then, we didn't do a 4-way match. I'd like to see what that looks like. Oh. I assume they're just in squares. And you get the same body meter. And yeah, it's nice and separated. Looks pretty cool. This is what bothers me in like these DS games and whatnot. Even old PlayStation 1 games did this. The graphic, like in the middle of the ring, is so pixely.
It always happens. It's like,
why? It doesn't even need to be there.
That's what I was going to say. If it's gonna look bad, just get rid of it. Like,
yeah. Like TNA didn't really have that unless it was like a stack or 2 ad in the corner of the ring.
Yeah.
Or like Toby Keith's new album. And that's not in the game. So just like get rid of it.
I want to talk about, we mentioned it before, let's talk about some of these game models here. So we mentioned Mick Foley. The textures and stuff look okay for what it is. On a small screen, it's it's Attitude Warzone-esque. The body types are what I have an issue with because everyone more or less kind of sort of has the same body model. There are slight changes here and there, but for the most part, you're not really doing a great representation of everybody. But again, small handheld Nintendo DS screen, not nearly as big as the PSP screen. So we're looking at this now.
No, but Mick Foley hasn't looked like this since he was probably 8 years old.
Yeah, and we're looking at this on a computer emulator.
And they still gave Samoa Joe back rolls, even though he's skinny and shirtless. So
it's just all right. You're knowledgeable.
And they're choosing.
You're knowledgeable about Hogan wrestling. No, about TNA. Sorry, knowledgeable about TNA. Hogan wrestling in TNA. He wrestled with a shirt on.
Yes.
Okay.
So I went to Bound for Glory 09, I think, where it was Hogan versus Sting. And it was just so weird. Hogan came out, like everyone expected, like wrestling gear, the red and yellow. He was in black jeans, a white TNA shirt, which you automatically like, okay, he's going to bleed. But then he he tied TNA colored blue bandanas around his knees. And it was the weirdest gear I've ever seen in my life.
That's a weird.
Bound for Glory.
That's a weird look.
Hogan. It was so weird. I mean, it was cool I was there because I think at the moment that's Hogan's last match. I don't think he had anything after that. No, I'm sorry. He had red bandanas around his knees.
Okay.
Maybe he had blue ones when he came out. I remember them being
TNA. There. I feel like that's not a color that they are. Oh, I guess later on.
Yeah, they changed the logo. So he had a regular red bandana, red knee bands, and a white and blue shirt. Oh my God. Sting came out wearing the red and yellow Hogan shirt. Now, someone in our chat saying that might be my hottest wrestling hot take. The end of Hogan-Sting match is the best moment in TNA history. It was... To be there was really cool. You see Sting getting attacked by Ric Flair, the rest of Immortal, and then you just see Hogan behind him looking around. The crowd was firing him up, but only on my side, the TV side, because the other side was completely empty. Looking around, he's going nuts. The crowd was loud, like it was a full arena, and he just takes out Ric Flair. He takes out the rest of Immortal. Send the fans home happy, and then they sent the fans home not happy when Bobby Roode didn't beat Kurt Angle for the title.
All right, moving on now to
TNA history.
To talk about the actual cartridges themselves. The Nintendo DS cartridge looks good. It's just it's exactly what you expect from a DS cartridge.
They were so small.
Yeah, it's an SD card. It's literally just like that's what the game was. It's an SD card. And then for the PSP version, you've got the UMD. Again, both of the Switch cartridge and the UMD for the PSP both follow the same style of the artwork for the cover. You've got the red for the DS, the blue for the UMD. The only major difference, real estate wise, is that because you got a little bit more space to play with the UMD, you got Kurt Angle and AJ Styles. What? Me saying more room to play with maybe perked up your ears?
Your UMD.
Go ahead,
okay.
Did you know? Cold shower.
Did you know TNA Impact Cross the Line was directed by Sal DeVita, who is known for Mortal Kombat and WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game?
Did you know a commercial for this game was released featuring Kurt Angle and AJ Styles wrestling in a game store?
Did you know this game is on eBay from $12 to $14 cartridge only for the DS, $24 complete, $13 to $18 used on the PSP with a brand new copy going for $60.
All right. Putting you on the spot right now.
Not buying it.
I'm going to say you adding this to your collection.
No. We talked about my collection. This computer is my collection now.
I will say this. Of your, what do you got, 4, 5 posters above your? 3. No TNA.
There's enough TNA in this Sting case behind me.
I was going to say, I guess Sting is your TNA representation.
Yeah, I'm good. The commercial is actually very remnant of old wrestling commercials, like the WCW ones, like Sting in the house and all that. It's pretty funny. AJ Styles comes flying through the window of a GameStop, and then Kurt Angle's there to wrestle him while two kids are trying to buy a game.
Wrestling video game commercials are always super fun and creative. The what's the one where they're doing oh god, I can't remember it. Where it's a barbecue or a summer party or something like that.
What's it called? Backyard Wrestling had that. But
no, there's one for WWE.
Crush Hour. Kane
That's
with the chef's hat.
Yes. Oh, that's just the intro video.
Yeah, that's in the game.
No, I think there's one where it's there's a party. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I could be thinking that it's even a promo with for a pay-per-view. That's that.
Could be. All right. Well, now it's time to sit back. I want you to relax, take a load off. It's time for some R&R, some ratings, and reviews. Now, Metacritic gives us an even 50 out of 100. Games Master is a 35%. GameSpot with a 5 out of 10. Game Radar with a 2 out of 5 stars. Game Zone with a 5.5 out of 10. Play is a 58%. I think that's a magazine. And PlayStation Official Magazine with a 3 out of 5 stars. GameSpot was specifically critical of the game's controls, which I think is a weird take because the PSP version is pretty dead on to the console game, and I don't feel like the controls were that bad. I mean, you're missing 2 triggers on a PSP. You only get 2 as opposed to 4. So maybe that's why a little dumbed down.
The ratings are always so all over the place from the different aggregators or the critics, is where it's just they'll give certain games flying colors And then other games, it's almost like if they don't like the console and the game is great, it gets a weird review. Like they like if the game is perfect, but they're maybe not a huge fan of the DS, they like deduct points because it's on the DS.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. You know, it's not as great of a game, but because it's on a good console, they're like, all right, no, bump it up a couple points.
Well, you played the DS version tonight.
Yeah.
So were the controls weird? Were they normal?
They felt, I mean, they were very...
The DS, I'm trying to remember, also had 2 bumpers, right?
Yeah, so it's got...
years since I played one.
It's 4 buttons, 4 face buttons, D-pad, and then the 2 shoulder buttons. But like, it's not very hard to pick up and control. I'm going to say it like it's an Xbox controller. Your Y, which I actually think may even be the same as the ABXY. Your Y is run. X and A are punch and kick, I think, and then B, or no, A and B are punch and kick, and then X is grapple.
Okay, so
like not incredibly hard. The thing that it took me the longest to figure out is that select was taunt.
Oh, okay.
That took me the longest to figure out because I was like, I wonder what select does.
Now, some weird parts of that game we forgot to mention up above. The entrances don't exist in the DS version. They just show entrance videos for each wrestler, which I get. You're on the you're not on the PSP. You're on the DS, so space is limited. They just show the video. The audio is pretty great. The videos are pretty great. It's not like we're back in the Game Boy Advance where it's just those little like 2 motion videos of the Rock going back and forth.
And it's not. I was trying to think about the music. The music for certain. Like Sting's music, I feel is like really, really high and like a little peaky at times. Where like,
that's the Game Boy.
Foley's music was like a regular volume, but for some reason they needed to like adjust something on Sting's music because it almost sounded like it was like it would have like blown out your speakers on your DS.
Well, I told you a while ago, my personal N64 growing up, my sister, it was hers. She had this white TV with like a built-in VCR. And that's what we played on. It was like a really small screen, but I would just sit really close to it. And the speakers were like blown out on it, only on N64. That like years later, I heard like, I don't know, one of the No Mercy songs or sounds or something. And I was like, this is what it sounds like? Like I always thought it was like, vroom, 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 vroom. Like I couldn't hear it. And then I went like to the back of the thing and I like switched a wire or something or got a new cable. And I was like, oh,
it was the cable. I was going to say, did you have like a bad card on on the board?
It was the cable, the whatever, yellow, red, white cables are just bad. Eventually got a new one.
Auxiliary,
it was completely
VGA?
fine. Yeah. But the other thing that was very weird about the DS version was the intro, like music video.
Oh yeah, you had to point this out to me. I was just like, oh yeah, no, these are all very good.
Scott Hall, Jeff Hardy, Sean Waltman, the Pope. Like the roster was endless of the beautiful people like Velvet Sky, Angelina Love. They were just all in there.
They're not in the game.
They're not in the game. It just kept going. Like it wasn't even like it was the Impact opening intro segment that you just use like just put the Impact package in there. No, this was like a made music video for this game. That just
they cut up a little package, like a little pay-per-view package.
Yeah, like Jeff Hardy on top of the cage, like head banging and all that. Oh my god, super weird. I think it's in our playthrough. I'm pointing them out as they go. I'm like, oh, not in the game, not in the game. Pretty crazy.
Well, with that, are you ready to get into this week's soft lock?
Nope. First, I want to know, George.
Oh, yeah, I'm jumping the gun.
What your ratings are, because right now, it's time to rate the game.
The game!
All right, Johnny Clash, as the resident TNA, not Hulk Hogan expert, I would like to know, TNA Impact crossed the line. We'll say more specifically the DS version. Would you play it forever? Or future endeavor?
You're fired! As much as I love TNA, it's a future endeavor. I'll say play it forever for the PSP version because it's a game I love on a smaller little handheld that you could just take anywhere. It's nice and cute. The DS version, same thing. It's on a handheld, but oh boy, knowing what the actual game is, I don't think I really want to play. Okay, knowing what the actual TNA Impact game is that I could have on a PSP or a console, and then knowing what like a year or two later that beautiful mobile game is, the DS game just doesn't fit, and I'm going to say goodbye to it.
You're fired!
All right.
And now you. Play forever, future endeavor.
Should have done a 3-2-1 because I'm right there with you. To know what is also available at the same time, both on a home console release and another handheld, it's kind of hard to say that you would pick the DS version over the PSP version. I will say this, though. Had this been a standalone title and not something like if it had just been Impact DS or something, like had it not been labeled as in the same line as Cross the Line, this may be a different story, because I think on its own, if you don't make it as part of the Cross the Line series, it's actually not a bad game for the DS. But to know that both, like you said, on your phone and on the other two consoles, what awaits you, it's kind of hard to say that this is up there in the same caliber. So yeah, I'm right there with you with a future endeavor on this one.
You're fired!
All right. Now,
And with that,
now there you go.
Now I can do it. Now I
may
can do
proceed.
the soft lock. Okay, John, would you like to get into the soft lock of the week?
Let's go.
All right, so the soft lock of the week is a weekly segment where one of our mega marks from our Patreon asks us a question. Sometimes it's a topic to debate. It's a question of the week with a fancy name. This week, the question comes from Jamie Patterson, our very own Soups, who's in the chat
He's
right
here.
now. And Soups' question is, do you think there is any saving AEW Fight Forever?
Man. So I feel like Stadium Stampede should have been that, the savior.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to Smart Mark the other day about this game. He was saying like he could play Stadium Stampede for like one game and then that's it. And same thing with like exhibition mode. He goes in, plays, and like he's like, all right, that's done. And I was like, you know what? It's too easy. Stadium Stampede is too easy. It took me 3 games to win a game. When you play Fortnite, when you play Warzone, you're getting one win maybe a night.
Yeah,
if it's
you're not-
good night.
Unless you're like ninja or professional like gamer, you're not dropping multiple solo wins, let alone, 10, 15.
Yeah, like I think Stadium Stampede's a lot of fun. I played a lot of it.
It is.
And I
It's
still
a lot
will
of fun.
play a lot of it. But once I won, I was like, all right, let's go play NHL. Like, I don't want to play this anymore. Like, I just succeeded. Now, do I think adding more to the story would help this game? Yes and no. Now, I know Justin Leeper posted that he's not with the company anymore. Like, he did his contract, he wrote the game, and that was it. So who's going to make the next iteration of the story? So that makes me think we're not getting it. I don't know.
Or it means that
It's going to suck.
say they're going to use someone else and maybe not have the same.
I think
quality?
people also don't understand the story, like how it's supposed to be like an old Fire Pro-y, No Mercy type, travel the world story of like a wrestler. Like, this is stuff you go through, like your sightseeing and whatnot. That it's not like a SmackDown vs. Raw or 2K where you're walking backstage and all that. Like, it's more whimsical, fun,
I think
and all that.
I think if there was more variety to the story, like to Road to the Elite, like I know that there's like branching storylines and stuff like that, but have more specific things to the wrestlers that you're playing as and like the people that you interact with, and how you can form tag teams and stuff. Like that Death Triangle storyline, you play it every time.
You play it every time. There's no avoiding it. So
to have something different based on the wrestlers that you're playing as, or maybe there's a variable where like you get like one of 5 starting points, and then from there it could like branch out. But like
there are some wrestlers that have unique stuff in there, like John Silver, Jeff Hardy, all that.
Yeah, but something for a majority of the roster would be cool, and like just honestly taking and expanding it out a little bit, like to take what is already there, which is at its core is a base fun game to play, but just making it so it has that replayability. I think that just small little tweaks absolutely can make the experience better. Is it too late? I don't know. The game's not even a year old.
Look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk had one of the worst launches in video game history.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people playing it. They were able to fix the game. I don't know if it's perfect because I got my refund for it when it came out.
Same thing with No Man's Sky. Game launched riddled with bugs. There were a lot of complaints.
People are still playing No Man's Sky.
People still play it, and they release content for it, and it gets new updates. People are still going back to it.
I think they need some just really good updates. They need to keep adding wrestlers. I know some people who got scanned for the game that haven't even been mentioned on the DLC or anything yet. Let's read. Fubsy in the chat just said, Stadium Stampede sucks. The Danhausen Hook DLC is really solid. I still maintain that the actual moment-to-moment gameplay of the matches is some of the best wrestling in any game we've gotten in the last 5 to 6 years. It's everything around it that's janky. I could agree. I like the match types. I like everything in there. I will go back to what I said about Stadium Stampede, but also with the regular matches, they're a little too easy at times.
Yeah, once you get a good understanding of the timing and the controls, you got to bump up the difficulty because you'll steamroll every character that you play.
Yeah, but hey, I don't know. To each their own. We're still waiting on Retromania's storyline part 2. Yep. I think UPW is going to come in swinging if that game is everything they're saying that it's going to be, which, listen, Fight Forever said it was going to be that game also. But if UPW is what it is, and they keep supporting it and keep updating it, I think that game is going to be a heavy contender in this genre.
It's exciting. I feel like we've said it a lot over the course of the last year, and I don't see it changing any more coming up. It's an exciting time to be a fan of wrestling video games. There's a lot of cool things on the horizon, and there's a lot to come. And it's just, if you're listening to this podcast and you're a fan of wrestling or of video games or a combination of both, like it's just cool to see these things happen. Like I know that there are people that listen to this podcast and are solely interested in hearing about games. Maybe they don't play every game that we play, but they just want to hear about it. Like it's cool to see all the things that are on the horizon. It's a different landscape in the world of wrestling than it was a couple of years ago for video games.
And now Jamie Patterson, who asked the question, just wrote in the chat, we need a roadmap, which is also just great. I look at Marvel Snaps all the time to see what's coming up. Patches, DLC, events, whatever it is, they need to let us know. The people paying for it know what's up. Now, that's a big issue. The Discord will say something and be like, oh, this is the Discord that said it, not the official AEW Fight Forever team. It's like, but you're the official Discord. Like, there's a lot of issues. We've already brought up the admins in that one. The Discord's very wild.
Yeah, it's a weird spot.
Yeah. But I think there's hope, and I hope there's hope because it is a fun game, and I hope it keeps going.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I invite everyone to let us know what you think about AEW Fight Forever as John drops his Powerade cap on the floor.
Yep.
Hopefully not spilling any. And let us know what you think about Fight Forever. Things that you would suggest on how to make it better. You can let us know on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. But John, let the fine people at home know what we're playing next week.
All right, we're going back to mobile games next week. This is a fun one. This looks great. We are playing 80s Mania Wrestling Returns. It's
right.
It's going to be an interesting one. I'll say that.
Not super familiar with this one.
I'll just say there's a 90s Sting looking guy named Laser, and a Ric Flair looking guy named Jet Set Strutter. So that's what you're in for.
All right. Very excited about that. But as always, guys, you could check out all of our video content at youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast. You can check out our shop, GameMarksPod.com/shop, ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod for all of our shirts, Patreon.com/GameMarksPod for this show, early and ad-free access to the show notes, the Discord, your opportunity to 1, get in on these live recordings, and 2, submit your own soft lock question. And of course, at Game Marks Pod on all forms of social media. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. It really does help out the podcast. And as well, of course, leave a 5-star review and rating for us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you have a product or service that you'd like to advertise on this podcast, you can please reach out to us at GameMarksPod@gmail.com. Another week, another game. Johnny Clash, whenever you're ready, sir, do that thing.
Game over. Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.